Hi everyone, my name is Adogs and thank you all for coming to my channel. So the original 5 decks from Lyrical Melody did get some new support in the Festival Collection 2023. They got a new grade 3 form as well as some support. So today I just want to today I want to go over the 5 decks and just give you a rundown of kind of what the new support does and kind of the game plan. So I've built all 5 decks. I've done some testing with all 5 of them, and this is where it has led me to pretty much. So we'll start with Monasterio. So Monasterio, essentially the game plan of this deck is to get your double wings so that you have the full effects of both the new grade 3 and the old grade 3. The game plan essentially is to attack with the new grade 3, right into the old grade 3, have both the effects so you can neg the opponent 5k and give your Vanguard 5k and a crit. Now, the new Celestial's effect for the Black Wings, essentially you can discard a card and search one of your Black Wings. So you do have a few Black Wing cards that do have some pretty good consistency potential. So with this grade 2 here, essentially when it's on place you can Soul Blast 1, then add a card from your bind and then put a card from your hand to the bind. So for example, you might have the double wings in your hand and your own Black Wings. You can use a skill to search for the grade 2, so the grade 2 can on play Soul Blast 1, add the card from bind and put double wings in bind, so then you have the full effect of the old grade 3 when you write the new grade 3 into the old grade 3. Now I do run 3 of the this grade 2 here. Is essentially allows you to recycle your old, the new grade 3 by grabbing it from the soul, putting it to hand once you throw the new grade 3 into the old grade 3. So that's definitely very nice, so that every turn you're always guaranteed a Persona Ride and you keep on that pressure on. Now, as long as you open a grade 2, this grade 2 here, and the new, old grade 3, you can essentially neg the opponent's Vanguard by 10k. So if you're going first, if the opponent doesn't have even defensive triggers, you can put them in a bad spot where they're forced to use a lot of cards from hand. So it's really strong. Now, we also do run Euikas to essentially be able to abuse the grade 2 and then abuse this other grade 2 as well. It's also used to abuse this grade 2 here, which is skill is essentially when it's placed you can counter +1. You can add a card from your bind and then bind a top card. So essentially it's a bit of like extra draw power. The Yoke is also really good for soul blasting your old grade 3s, so then you can use the grade 1 to put the old grade 3 back to the deck, so you can always continuously ride the new grade 3 into the old grade 3. I keep saying that over and over again. Essentially that's the idea. So the idea is to rinse and repeat, doing the constant 4 attacks every turn, putting pressure, making the opponent's power by 10 or potentially 15, and just keep bashing phase until they die. This deck's definitely very aggressive. It's somewhat consistent since, once you're in Black Wings you do have ways of searching out other Black Wing cards that can help aid into hopefully getting into the right pieces that you need. So the deck overall is definitely very fun and it's fairly solid too. As I said, if you open this grade 3 here, the deck can be absolutely nutty. So yeah, Celestial all overall, really strong deck. Next we have Clarissa. So the game plan of Clarissa is still fairly the same, it just has a lot more pressure. So originally the old Clarissa, it had the ability essentially when it was placed on the Clarissa grade 2 or when it's rode upon, you were able to search the strongest idol. Now you search it from deck, so once you had any more copies in the deck, you're pretty much screwed. But with the new grade 3, essentially allows you to essentially you can discard a Clarissa, and then you can add a into the strongest idol from your drop to your hand. But if you Persona Road, instead of doing that, you can just Soul Blast instead. So essentially this allows you to always recycle your end of the strongest idol, so you can always use that brawler effect to attack into a Vanguard and 2 units. So it has very, very strong pressure against decks like Ava, Youth Perk, Volstra, Chronojet. Those decks that kind of need their regards, you can essentially destroy their board. Now, I'm not running a lot of cards at 4 copies, aside from this grade 2, as I want to always make sure that I consistently see 4 different owners corrects, as the Ain't the Strongest Idol needs you to have 5 owners corrects, different names, for it to work. So if you do manage to do that, then you're good to go, and you can use your brawler effect every turn. Now, unfortunately, the brawler effect only works when the opponent is in grade 3. So when you're going first, the deck essentially doesn't do much. So it's essentially the same game plan. Now, Clarissa's second skill though, essentially is like when she attacks, as long as she hits, you can get to draw 2 cards and give all of your honors corrects 5k. So compared to the old one where it drew 1 for each card you hit, this one essentially, as long as it hits 1, you would draw 2 and get everything 5k. It's really strong. Something I also like to mention about Ain't the Strongest Idol is that it also gives everything 5k. So essentially, Ernest, the new Ernest correct on top of Ain't the Strongest Idol, can potentially give all units plus 20k. That's really strong. Oh, plus 10k, sorry. Now, this grade 2, we run 3 copies. Usually, the idea of her was that your Vanguard had to hit for her to restand. But with the new grade 2 that we have here now, your Vanguard doesn't have to hit for a Vanguard to restand. That's why I run her at 3 copies, which is definitely very nice. Now this grade 2 here, this one essentially allows you to search for other earnest corrects that you're missing to actually gather 4 earnest corrects, so that you have 5 altogether to use Ain't the Strongest Idol. You then also do run 2 of the grade 1. This can essentially allow you to fetch some pieces that you've lost. So maybe you lost like a grade 2, or maybe you lost like another piece that you need. You can essentially discard her to get those pieces back, so you can always consistently use your order to always get the brawler effect off. Because essentially, if you're not using the brawler effect every turn, you can start being up struggle street, because then you're not applying the pressure. So again, the new grade 3 definitely solid, definitely helps the game plan. You don't have to worry about searching for your deck anymore to to get the Ain't the Strongest Idol. And then both the grade 2 essentially working to not have your Vanguard to hit the restand, which is nice. And then the grade 1 essentially be able to search cards, you earn scripts from your drop. So now you have searchability from drop, deck, and then you have restands that don't require it to be hit. So definitely solid overall. As long as you can stun ride every single turn, you're putting through so much damage, it's crazy. But as I said, the only inconsistency is that you have to always open 5 bonus corrects, and sometimes that doesn't always happen. So again, with certain retired decks, you could be up struggle street. But against decks that can swing on regards, you do thankfully have this great one here that can help. So that is Clarissa. Next we have Filthy Rosa. So the idea of Filthy Rosa is you're focusing on kind of high rolling with this deck. So the idea is you want to put a Filthy Rosa in the soul as quick as possible, so that all your ghosts on the front row get plus 10k. So to help aid in doing that, you do run this grade 1 and then the new grade 1. So the old grade 1 skill was essentially that when another ghost is placed in front of her, you can choose a Filthy Rosa from drop and put it into the soul. So then if you do put the grade 3 Filthy Rosa in the soul, then again the new Filthy Rosa procs all your ghosts in front of it plus 10k. Then you have this grade 1 here, which essentially when it boosts, you can counter last 1. You can put a card in front of her into the soul and draw 1. So again, if you have Filthy Rosa, you put it in front of the grade 1, she can start the Filthy Rosa in the soul, and then again, you can give all your ghosts 10k power. Now, we also do run a few cards that can stand your boosters. So you have this grade 3 here, grade 2 here as well, and this grade 2. So these ones essentially allow you to restand your boosters so that you're always hitting massive numbers. Because essentially, if you call this off by an effect, this will be 20k because it gets 5k when it's called by an effect and 5k when it attacks. So if you're standing a booster, any of the boosters essentially, it's going to be 28. But again, if you do put a Filthy Rosa in the soul, it'll be 38. So again, straight from the get-go, if you have Filthy Rosa in the soul and you go first, you can potentially swinging 38k columns. This one here, this would be 18. So again, if you combo that with Filthy Rosa, if you've managed to put a Filthy Rosa in the soul, then she'll be 28, and then again, if you have a booster behind her, she's 36. So again, very, very strong. Now, with the new Rosa, her second skill was essentially response per turn, encounter +1. You have the ability of, when you reveal a normal ghost, you can call to open Riga Circle, which gets extra drive, and you gain that twice. So essentially, if you reveal a normal ghost, you get an extra drive, so you drive check again. If you're another one, you get an extra drive again. So essentially, you get to essentially get your 4 drives potentially for 1 counterblast instead of 2. Again, as long as you keep seeing your ghosts. Now, again, if you keep seeing your ghosts, you should be hopefully be doing 5 attacks every turn, and instead it'll be 5 strong attacks. That can be ranging at least from 26, 28 to all the way to 38. Now, this is before Persona Ride. Once you hit Persona Ride, you'll be hitting 48k columns. That is fucking nuts. It hits some crazy fucking numbers. So, Felshires is definitely a very strong deck that where if you high roll and the opponent is fucked. So this is essentially what Felshires is. Now, something you want to mention about this grade 2 here, you could probably bump her up if you wanted to. I could maybe like bump this grade 3 down by 1 or something if you wanted to. But the reason why I run her is, again, she can technically reset a booster, because she's all +1, calls a ghost from drop, it can put it on any circle. So you can put a booster behind her, so then you know she has a booster reset. But also to run her for the fact that for certain matchups when you are getting your balls always constantly getting destroyed, she can essentially allow you to make an extra body on board so you can get those 5 attacks off. And so on Persona Ride, she loses to be 20k, so it's nice. So overall, again, Felshires is definitely a really strong high roll deck. Now, Laura Norel. This deck, definitely very strong. She has a lot of plussing power, and then she has a lot of deck thinning. So we'll talk about the new Laura Norel itself first. So the new Laura Norel, essentially, when she's placed on Vanguard, so we can look at top 5, and you can call a card from top 5 that's great for your less. Then she has a second skill that when she attacks, you can sing a song. And then also cost, you can Soul Blast a Laura Norel, and then she gets an extra drive, and the opponent cannot call Sentinels. So, if you're going second, and just say, for example, you open a Laura Norel and you open this grade 2, this grade 2 can essentially put a Laura Norel on the soul, so that when going second, you can instantly get the guard restrict off. You know, if you combo that guard restrict with the crit, essentially she can be 13k with a crit, guard restrict, and triple drive. You combo that behind the grade 1, she can essentially be 24 with crit, guard restrict, and triple drive. So as you can see, it's an ongoing theme where, like, if you essentially go second and you open Laura Norel and you have the right pieces set up, she can be very scary. You can always constantly get the guard restrict off. Now, we do run free Laura Norels, not just to put in the soul, but she can also be used through Persona Ride 2, as you can essentially Persona Ride her over the new one. That's fairly okay, because essentially, if you're going first and second, you've already played one song. So again, when you run into the old one, you can +1, you sing another song. So again, she now has she has the requirements fulfilled to get the guard restrict now too, because when she attacks, you have 2 songs face down. Now, this grade 2 here. So, as I said before, she allows you to put a card from your hand to the soul to search for a song and add to hand. So she also does have a first skill too, which was you only have 2 songs face down, she gets +10k. So she acts as a very solid beater by herself. One of the problems in see a Laura Norel is that aside from this grade 2 here, there wasn't really any other strong standalone attackers. She now does have a strong standalone attacker. Now, another part I forgot to mention about the grade 2 is that when you do Persona Ride, instead of putting a card in the soul, you can Soul Blast 1 instead. Which means you're now wasting less cards in your hand, and you're fitting your deck more, adding orders to hand, adding your songs to hand. So again, you can search your grade 2s, do extra plussing, you can also search your fractals. And the fractals are very strong in this deck too, as again, if you're standing these grade 2s here with fractal, especially on Persona Ride, you'll essentially be getting quite a few 30k swings. That's really strong. This is before boosters, so again, if you have boosters behind her, like this grade 1 here, she can hit 30, 38k columns, very, very strong. Another thing to look at Fractal, as usual, is that it makes your Vanguard bigger. As I said, once you, usually second tone, you should have enough songs face down that she becomes big of the guard district and it starts to become very hard to guard. And as I said, especially with the old honor roll, being able to give her both the crit and the fractal, that's really strong. That's also another reason why she's also a really good percenter ride target to ride with. Now again with the old grade 2, this grade 2 here, which is really nice, being able to essentially just filter your hand, draw 2 cards, essentially keeps increasing your hand, very, very nice. And this grade 1 here, essentially was punishment which was placed, you can counterblast 1. Then the top 5 cards of your deck, you can add 2 different law rolls, and if you don't see any law rolls, it's okay, you get to draw 1. So essentially, regardless, you get a plus in some way, shape or form. Now, one thing I did want to mention is that how much the deck can plus. As an example, if you go second, and just say you have a way of putting a lot around the song, when you ride the grade 3 Lord roll over the grade 2 Lord roll, if you search the man red this song here and you run grade 3, you draw a card. That's 1 plus already. Then you use grade 3 skill to the top 5. If you find either the new grade 2, the old grade 2, or the new grade 1, that can essentially allow you to plus even more. So essentially you've plussed 1 from your grade 2, 1 from Lord roll, and then potentially plus if you've got one of these 3 cards. So essentially plus 3 already. Again, if you use this one here, you get silver pluses. Again, same thing here, you can search for your grade 2 order, and that's essentially how you can pluff with the grade 2, because you can put this grade 2 into the order zone and draw 1 because it goes to grade 3. And again, obviously with this one as well, you can counterblast 1, top 5, find 2 Lord rolls. If you don't, you can just draw 1. And then lastly, as I said, if you do have Lord roll on the soldier, you get some extra drive, so that's another plus. And then if you decide to sing the grade 1, it's another plus as well. So as you can see, the deck can plus a lot. And as I said, the deck does have some good deck filling potential because of the grade 1 and the grade 2. As I said, this grade 2 filters songs, this one filters Lord rolls. So you're filtering your deck very, very well. So overall, Lord rolls is definitely very strong. If you're looking to play this deck, I definitely highly recommend it. It's very, very powerful. Now, lastly, we do have a list art. This is honestly the deck that I've been playing the most out of all the Lyrical decks. I think this deck has so much potential. So, I'll start off with list art itself, and I'll kind of talk over all the other cards in the deck, because everything surprisingly just synergizes very well. So with the new Ballista, so her first skill was when she's placed, you can discard a card from your hand, add a gem from your soul, drop the hand. So essentially, she allows you to recycle your gems, which is really great. And then her second skill was act on a Vanguard circle. You can soul blast a gem, and then she gains the ability depending on what the gem soul blasted was. So if you soul blast the blue gem, you get top 5, core 2, and then shuffle the rest back into the deck. And then she also gains 15k if you soul blast a red one. Now, what I like about Ballista herself is the fact that you look at top 5 and core 2 out. The other 3 cards, if you do core 2 out, don't get the drop, they go back into the deck. So essentially you're deck thinning and you aren't essentially decking out faster, which is good. Now, with this order here specifically, this order is really, really strong because it counts as both gems. So again, with the Ballista, her act skill is once per turn. So the idea is by soul blasting the new gem, you'll always get both her effects off. Now, the gem, the second part of the gem, sorry, its skill is, it's when it's put into the soul, when you activate the skill, there's a draw 1 card, and then you get the Vanguard plus 5. So, essentially, only grade 2, any grade 3, you're making measure numbers. The grade 2 will be 15, So again, if the opponent looked down to 15k shield, it's fine to pass, as an example. And the Ballista, it's going to be 33 because you're going to be using her skill. So it makes really, really nice magic numbers and massive numbers. The second part of the skill was, if you essentially go second, because the opponent has to be grade 3, you can counterblast 1 and Soul Blast a Ballista to Santa Riga. So this gem does so much, and it's really, really strong. And because it counts as both gems, and it has essentially fetch ability because of the new Ballista, you can get away running 2 gems. You essentially just need to have 1 in rotation. And unless you are so unlucky and somehow get both in damage zone, the opponent crits you and get both in damage zone, then you're screwed, but it shouldn't be happening. Well, hopefully it shouldn't be happening. Now, next I'll talk about some of the ult support. So in the ult support we run the grade 3 and the grade 1 for Ballista. So Elvira works really well in this deck. Since you need to play a blue gem for the draw a card, since this counts as both gems, it's a really great consistency. Because essentially, since this counts as both gems, when you play that gem you draw a card because it counts as a blue gem. So if you do open multiple copies of her, you can draw multiple cards, so it's really strong. The one thing I didn't like before was that since you had to always specifically play the blue gem to draw cards, you obviously had to play a bit more blue gems, but you also play red gems as well because you had to have a bit of a consistency of both. But now, since this does pretty much everything, I had more space to actually run a place of Elvira's. That was really good because I said, the longer these stay on the board, the more you're going to draw. It's really, really good. And then also this gem helps this grade 3 a lot. Because the majority of the time before, you were using Affiliate just for the second skill, which was just to pretty much stand this off by putting a card behind your Vanguard to hold the deck. But now, since this gem counts as both gems, she now gets both the effects, so she gets a 15k as well. So essentially, she swings for 13 first, but then becomes a 28k beater when she stands. That's really strong. And something I also liked about the Affiliate was that your opponent's Vanguard does not have to be on grade 3 for her to stand. So essentially, when going first, you can have a potential, definitely have a 33k Vanguard, and then a 13, but then also after that 28k Vanguard, and depending on what the other column is. So you can put in some really strong pressure straight off the bat. Now I do run a couple of the All Ballistas, as again I want to always be constantly persona riding, but also because of the first skill it does come up with certain matchups. The main matchup specifically is Ava, because her first skill essentially was you can Soul Blast a Ruby, and then it gets plus 15k, and then your opponent can't accept. So again, it stops the opposite grenades, which means it forces the Ava player to actually use more cards in hand, which in some situations can actually make the Ava's players turn worse. So this is really nice. But the reason why I won more grade 3s on the deck, aside from the new one, is because of this grade 2 here. So the grade 2 skill is when she's placed, you can put a card from your hand to soul, look at the top 5, search retrieve from listers, and to hand. If you didn't find any, you can draw a card. So essentially, what she can do, she can put a Ballista into the soul using a skill, so that you can get your orders skill straight off the bat, getting 5 attacks if you go second. So 5 attacks going second is really, really good. So, and then also again, even if you don't get the 5 attacks off, just being able to essentially filter a card from hand, potentially get extra persona rides, or just potentially draw a better card, I think is really nice. This grade 2 here. This synergizes really well with the new Ballista. The reason being is that Ballista's first skill is on ride, and then this grade 2 skill activates when during the ride phase. So when you ride in the ride phase and use a skill, if you discard this grade 2, you can actually activate the skill Soul Blast 1, put them on the deck, and then draw one. And then her skill will essentially allow you to add the gem from your drop to hand, or your soul from hand. So essentially, that discard was free, because you essentially broke even with that, because you get to draw one, and then you get to add the gem. So it's a really, really strong combo if you do open one of them. Now, she's also really good giving that, that plus 5k in the front row to help us make even better magic numbers. So again, with List as an example, she's usually base 33. On Persona Ride, she's 43. If she's grade 2, she's going to be 48. She's hitting some goddamn massive numbers. And this grade 2, for example, on Persona Ride, she's 23, but when you use her skill, she'll be 28. And then when she stands, she'll go from 28 to a whopping 43. You are making some crazy numbers in this deck. It is absolutely whack. Next, I do run 2 of these grade 1s. So this is Jennifer. So what her skill essentially does is when you have 4 units on board, you can discard a card in your hand and play an order from your drop. So essentially, you can play your gem from the drop, and then put it in the soul, draw one, and then have that skill active again, so you get the multi attacks off. But then you can also use the abilities on both your lists. So she's kind of like a consistency boost where in situations where we might not have like another Persona Ride, so we had to rely on something else to essentially always consistently use Bliss's skill. Because as I said, you essentially want to use her skill every turn, making her big and then filtering your deck. If you're doing that, you're having a really good time. And then lastly, I do run 3 Eureka's. But essentially, since Blister herself is you're looking at top 5 in calling cards, if you find cards like, for example, just PGs, or maybe affiliates, or maybe like, grade 2s you want to reuse over again, you can call those, and you can bounce them back to hand. So she's really good at kind of searching the card potentially and bouncing back to hand. Also, if Persona Ride as an example too, she can potentially find that, and then you can bounce back to hand. So Eureka definitely puts a lot of effort in this deck. So pretty much just everything in this deck just synergizes as well. It's kind of crazy. So I think Melissa can potentially make an impact on that. I think potentially she could. I just think she's just really strong. And again, because of the amount of fearing and draw power, you run fronts. And again, hitting on fronts in this deck is crazy, because I said the deck hits numbers like crazy numbers already. That hitting a front trigger makes your turns even more crazy. So that's pretty much the 5 decks from this collection. So I hope you guys enjoy. If you did, please leave a like, and while you're down there, why not subscribe and hit the notification bell so when I upload another video, you will be notified. Hey dogs out. See ya.